Hello again, it's been a while. This is Gus, and today we have the pleasure of having Alex Kulcsar here in the office, and we're going to be talking about...
We're going to play in MakeCode Arcade today. So I've been playing in this space for almost since it started, but it's quite a few months now. It's a really cool space, and right now the team over at Microsoft and MakeCode Arcade are running a game jam, which the topic and the focus of it is 5-second games. So I figured we'd start a 5-second game today.
So before we get into the game, I would love to hear more about your background and your experience, because today, how do you say that? Arguably?
There you go, arguably.
Arguably, you are the lord of creating games for arcade.
That's going to be a tough cut. Try that again.
So how did you get into arcade? How did you start? And what makes you so interested? You're making always these amazing games. So tell me more about your games, your background. How did it come about?
So I teach for a online university out of northwestern Missouri called ABTU, American Business and Technology University. And we, among other things, we have a couple of degree tracks in computer programming. I'm the chair of the computer science department there. And
boring. Games are fun.
So we have a computer science curriculum, and one of the courses that I teach, I need new curriculum. And I was starting with the predecessor to MakeCode Arcade, which is called Touch Develop. That program has been discontinued, and they moved us over to MakeCode Arcade, so that's why I've been playing in it. I've been creating games for our new curriculum. It's been a lot of fun. I like video games. I like the history of video games, so that's going to be the core of our new curriculum, and this is a great space for it. So I've played lots of different games, created lots of different games, classic games like Pong, and kind of working on Pac-Man and Asteroids and those types of things. And that's going to be the focus of our new curriculum at ABTU. So that's how I got started.
So before MakeCode, have you made games?
So I played in the space where independent developers create arcade games for the Xbox, so I played in that space too. But for beginning programmers and for starting programmers, MakeCode Arcade made much more sense. So I like this environment. That's where I played a lot over the course of the past several months.
What was the very first game you created on MakeCode? Do you remember what it was?
So I know the first game that I published was Pong. The first game that I made was not Pong, it was Asteroids, if I remember correctly. It's been a little while since I've actually had the chronology, but I think I published Pong first, but I started creating Asteroids first.
So is this is available today? That's like one of the games you've published and shared?
Yes. So if you head over to the MakeCode forums, you can find all of my games there, and Pong and Asteroids are two of the first ones that I put out.
Do you, on the homepage of, there's like the community shared on the MakeCode arcade.makecode.com homepage, there are some games that are shared by the community. Do you have any of your games on the homepage?
Sure. If we head down to the community section on the main page of MakeCode Arcade, so Salvo, which is, for those of you who played board games, that's the original version of Battleship that you might have played. That game I wrote. And then if we scroll over to the right a little bit, Space Fight, which is arguably the very first arcade game ever written commercially or had large success, which was called Space War. That's a clone of Space War.
I feel jealous. You can say arguably much better than I can do.
And there's some other wonderful games here. Chomper is similar to Pac-Man, along with Hackman, which was created by one of our employees here, Greg, at GHI. So there's a lot of wonderful games here created by a lot of different developers in the community games, and then there are lots of other games that were created by...
Fantastic. So now we want to be part of the challenge. So we're going to make something.
Yes.
Really quick.
Well, we'll go as quickly as we can. So the spirit of the game is a 5-second game. It takes longer than 5 seconds to create a game, but the game can only run for 5 seconds. So
the creation of the game is 5 minutes.
Yeah, we'll say 5 minutes.
Okay, 5 minutes. But then at the end, you're creating something that's you win or lose in 5 seconds.
Right.
What kind of game are we creating? Do you have an idea, or you just get a...
There's a few different games that you can create for 5-second games, and already we've seen some really creative things. I'm going to create a simple racing game, I think. It might be a chaser game too. We'll see which one comes out.
Okay, we have 5 minutes. Let's go.
So in order to create a 5-second game for the Game Jam, you have to start with a template instead of starting with a blank game. So I'm going to click on this template, and it should load in the simulator. So this is the demo game that comes in. It has some very core components that are already programmed for you, including the countdown timer. So we're going to edit the code.
So it's a princess. What is the? Does this do anything, or this is just a?
So the goal of the game right now is to eat the donuts that are coming into the screen.
Okay.
And if you don't eat any of the donuts, whoops, well, I'll try that again. So as long as you eat one donut, you win. If you eat no donuts, then you lose.
Okay.
So very simple game. You only have 5 seconds, so they're all going to be very simple games. So we're going to create a game off of this template. So you can, Joey and Richard have already done a video that's available over on the MakeCode forums on the game template. So we won't go into too much detail about how this template works, but we have the structure already for the game. We're going to manipulate it. So I think we're going to do a racing game. So I'm going to build what's called a tile map, which is the racetrack, and then we'll change the sprite so that it's maybe a car, because that would make sense, because we're racing, and then we'll have a start and an end, and that'll be our 5-second game. At least that'll be the starting point for our 5-second game. So we have in the code already, we have what's called a debug loop. We'll take that out for the regular game, but this just basically restarts the simulator so that instead of ending the game at 5 seconds, it just replays it. Our instructions, this is going to be a driving game, so we need to get to the finish line. So something like, I don't know, what do you think? Race? No.
Sure. Run.
We could leave the princess in there and have it be a running game. So I'm going to change our main character, the player character. It's not going to be a hungry princess anymore. We're going to make it a car. So we'll make it a car.
And of course, this is the name of the name of that variable or that object into the game is only important for us because when you're developing the game, if you're making a game, if you make a car, you want to name it a car. So when you have 60 things on the screen, you know which one is the car by that name. But as far as the computer is concerned, they could be labeled C1, C2, C3.
Right. And actually, when you drop this block in, it's called my sprite. So we're just making it something that's meaningful to us. The computer really doesn't care. Right now, again, the princess is the sprite. We're going to change this, head into the gallery because we only have a few minutes. So I'm not going to draw a car. I can't draw a car anyway. So we'll use...
this is where the Steam comes in, the art
yes,
piece of Steam.
And it's the part of Steam that I'm glad that we've injected back into the curriculum because it's really important for students to understand that there's an art to programming and there's a science to programming also. So we're going to drive a car around. We won't worry about turning the car. And then I need a racetrack. And in order to have a racetrack, the thing that makes the most sense for this would be something called a tile map. So I'm going to pull a tile map in here if I remember where they are. It's under scene, sorry. So I'm going to pull a tile map in off of the scene toolbox. Right now the tile map will be blank, so it'll just be transparent or black in the background. But I'm going to draw the racetrack. And the racetrack is going to be really simple. It's just going to be a rectangle.
So a tile map is you're drawing, you have these boxes and each box has a color. And each color represents a tile at some point. And so those can be, like you can say, to keep it simple, green is grass. So you draw a tile map and then you have green areas and those at some point will become in your map in the world that the game, the character lives in the game. The grass could be green and then the road can be black or brown. So that you're creating, it looks exactly like sprites, but right. Now this is a map of what the sprites would be, and the connection point is the color of the block.
Right, so the different colored blocks in a tile map can represent different things. For our simple racetrack, we're going to have walls and not walls. In other words, walls where the car will bounce, and then the part where the car will drive, which would be the racetrack. So I'm going to have the black part be the walls, and then I'm going to fill in the racetrack with blue. So the car is only going to be able to drive on the blue parts, and then it'll bounce off of the black parts in my map. I'm also going to set a start and an end point. So I'm going to say start is, I'm going to say start is green, and I'm going to say finish is red. So the player has to get from the start point to the finish point. That'll be my simple racing game. And I'll even make it even simpler so that they don't miss the finish line. I'm going to put some walls around it so that they're forced to go to that little space. Okay? So there's our racing track. And again, really simple colors, really simple track. By default, it just uses the colors in the tile map. We can change these so that, for example, instead of our starting point being green, we can just make it blue like the rest of them. So I'm going to set a particular tile, in this case my green tile, and I'm going to make it look like the rest of the racetrack. And the rest of the racetrack is blue. And if you notice over there in the simulator, once it restarts, you notice that our starting point looks like just any other part of the racetrack. I'm also going to change the red, and hopefully there's a checkered flag in there. And if not, we'll draw one.
So why do we want to hide them?
It's a little, to me, it's distracting for that start point to look different. There's no reason for it to look different. So I'm just.
But how do I know? Like, how do I know where's my? If I'm playing the game, how do I know where I'm heading? Where is my end if we hide it?
So the green tile was the starting point.
Okay.
So as a player, I don't care what the starting point looks like. I just care about where I need to go. Right?
Correct.
So I'm going to make the red, instead of a stop, just a red block, I'm going to make it look like a checker flag because it's a race.
I see. You're not. I thought you were gonna hide it.
No.
You're not gonna hide it. You're gonna make it look.
I'm going to make it look different. So there's no checkered flag in the gallery. So I'm going to draw one. This is going to take a little while. So
we can pick like a wall or one of the options, or we can draw it.
So we'll draw something like, something like that. It's going to look terrible, and that's okay. This is just demo graphics. So
beautiful.
Yes, isn't that gorgeous? I should have used the rectangle. So checkered flag, right? And it's kind of waving. There you go.
It is waving pretty much.
So if we, so if we look at, I need to fill these in with white. If we look at the simulator, once I finish drawing my really ugly checkered flag.
The waving flag.
The waving checkered flag, right? So you notice that the car is still in the middle. We'll move that here in a second. But we will go from our starting point to the checkered flag. So again, you notice that the sprite, our car, is in the middle, which is in a wall. That doesn't make any sense. We want to start at our starting point, which is a green tile. So again, over here in scene, we have the ability to place a sprite on a particular colored tile. So I'm going to pull that over here too.
So I've never done this before myself. Like so I usually give it a position on the screen.
Right.
But this is a lot easier. When you set the block, and then when you move the block, if you have like level 2, level 3, and then you go to the next level, and then your starting point is anywhere in the map, the car will just go there. Exactly. Now I understand. Yeah. And it's hidden, so it's not. The player doesn't see it, but then the game automatically sets the car on that block.
Exactly. And if you could have multiple starting points, so if I had 2 green tiles, it would just pick one at random, so you could do that. That could add a little bit of randomization to the game.
Nice.
So I'm going to say I need to start on a green tile. So when the simulator restarts, you'll notice that the car has moved.
Great.
So I don't need any projectiles. I don't need any donuts flying at me.
Yeah, so in this game, we are not like trying to get away from something or trying to get something.
So it might be an interesting feature that you want to add to this game. If you want to have obstacles that kind of move around in the space, if you want, that'd be kind of interesting.
Yeah, you want to get to the end without getting hit by an asteroid.
Yeah, or oil slicks that move, something like that.
Yeah.
So for the time being, we're just going to get rid of the donuts. So I'm going to take this entire block, that's the on-game update block, and I'm going to delete it. Sorry, I pushed delete on the keyboard. You can also drag it to the trash can. So now if I drive my car around, you notice that I can drive into the walls, which is not what I want. All right? I want to be able to basically bounce off the walls or be prevented from moving to those black spaces. So if we go into the scene area again, I can set that by setting a tile. And I want my black tiles to still be black. That's fine. Or pink. You can make them whatever color you want. And this with wall on will make it so that the sprite won't actually cross into them. It'll just bounce off of them. It'll stop it from moving. So if I now move up or down, I can't move into the walls. It prevents me from moving there. Right? So this game's almost done. I have a racetrack. I've got a car. I can drive it because that came with the template. So now the only thing that needs to happen is right now I'm losing the game every time. And when I hit the checkered flag, I want to be able to win. Right? So over here, actually I don't have a projectile.
So are you
I'm going to
detecting a collision between the, or is it position or collision between the player and the end?
It'll be a collision, and in order to detect a collision, the tile has to be a wall. So instead of the wall off on the checkerboard, I need the wall turned on. Because again, in order to detect a collision, the wall has to be turned on so it can register.
But this also, you cannot go on it anymore, right?
Right.
It will block you from going on the wall, but you detect that you're touching the wall.
Right, exactly. Okay. So if I remember correctly, this is in scene. So I have a block that says, on sprite of kind player hits wall of a color. Remember, our checkered flag is a red tile. So now if the player hits a red wall, which is our checkered flag, we want the game to win. So that's under Game Jam. This is specific to the Game Jam template. And we say win game there. And then if they hit it once, we win the game, but we still want them to be able to drive. So we're actually going to take this checkered flag tile and we're going to turn the wall off so that once they hit it, it registers the win, but then they can keep driving. So now, if I play
so
my
this
game,
answers my earlier question that
Yes.
you cannot go on it. So what you're going to do is, as soon as you detect it, you win, but then you set the flag to OK to go on,
Yep.
which means you're going to proceed
it's
on.
totally
the wall.
cheating. But yeah, so we're turning the wall off. So now if I'm driving my car, I'm going to lose because I don't have enough time. So 5 seconds, and I can drive over the wall, and I won. So there's our 5-second game.
Fantastic. So one thing I want to point out here that so this can be a little bit tricky here. So when we need to remember that, like in the tile here, when you said the collision, when you detected the collision, between the player and red, that red is in the tile map. Red means something. So when you make this game, when you create your tile map, you need to make a decision, like maybe make a note of what these colors mean, so later on when you develop more complex maps, because we were saying like they can have an oily area that your car you're not supposed to go on. Those can be like a yellow spots. Right. So since these are not going through names, they're going by colors, it would make sense to take these colors and make a note that red is the end, green is the start, because you will not see these in the actual game.
Not necessarily.
Because green is hidden, and in this example, and red becomes the wavy checker ending spot.
It actually does kind of look like it's waving, doesn't it? So one of the wonderful things about programming is that we use comments all the time when we program. So if you want, you can document your tile map by adding a comment, and we can say red equals maybe. Red equals end, green. This is having a really hard time typing for some reason.
I've never used comments on MakeCode before, so this is interesting.
Blue.
I think every time the game resets, it's
path, and then black equals wall. Right? So if you ever forget what your tile map represents, you have a reminder right there. That's why that's one of the many reasons why we use comments in programming, is so that when we come back to a piece of code 2, 3, 8 months later, we're going to forget what our tile map represents. We can go back to our comments.
Well,
and say, this is what all of these tiles mean.
And even more than that, if you shared this game, like if you created a link and you send it to me, I may not know what red is.
Right.
But your note, if you do a handwritten note, I'm not going to see it.
Exactly.
But if it's there forever for you to see. Right. And if you share the game with somebody, they will see the notes as well.
And that's, again, in programming, we use comments all the time when we're trying to document, trying to understand what a piece of code does, or we're trying to convey the meaning to another person. We comment code all the time so that when somebody else reads the code, they can understand as best as possible what that code was meant to do.
Okay, fantastic.
Do you want to see this game running on a BrainPad?
Yeah, let's do that. We
right.
we have a BrainPad right here, BrainPad Arcade, and let's load the game on there.
So let's download this game. And when you click on download, if it doesn't know already, the environment asks you what type of a board you have. And again, we have a BrainPad Arcade hooked up to this particular computer. So it goes through and it compiles the code that you've written for the board. And then one of two things will happen depending on your computer, but this is the fail-safe where you have a file that's created for you, and you can copy it and paste it to the device. And then once that image file, once the code has been copied over to the device restarts, and you can play
Go,
the game
go, go, go.
on the device.
Ah, come on. I'm really slow. Go, 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 go. Come on, come on, come on.
Oh!
Ah! It's the thing you added.
I know, it's too small.
Okay.
So this is a...
I'm losing every time. Okay,
Hey!
hey.
And it was a
Okay,
win.
well, thank you very much. Really appreciate your
Absolutely.
time. It's been a pleasure having you here. Hopefully, we can do this again, and we
I would love to.
can do another game. Hopefully, a more exciting game that I can win every time.
That's right, Gus. I appreciate it very much. We'll see you all very soon.
Yeah, thank you guys. Bye-bye.